Okay, welcome to another edition of How to Have Outrageously Awesome Employees. I'm your host, Randy Starr, and today we have a special guest. Merrick Dresnin with the Cote Family Destinations is going to hang out with us for a little bit and answer some questions. How are you today, Merrick?
Wonderful. Good morning.
Good morning, and thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. Just so we can get an idea, Merrick, could you tell us a little bit about your background, like positions you've held and companies you've worked for and that type of thing?
Certainly. So currently I'm the company or corporate director of human resources for Cote Family Destinations. And we have our flagship property in northern Minnesota. It's Grandview Lodge. And then we also have summer camps, boys and girls, and a property down in Arizona, Tucson, Arizona. Previous to that, and all along I've been doing HR consulting, but previously I had opened the Trump International Hotel in Washington, D.C. I was there for about a year and a half from the very beginning, hard hats and all.
Wow.
And prior to that, prior to them moving me out to D.C., I was in Chicago in a VP of HR position at United Service Companies, which is a labor outsourcing firm. And prior to that, Vice President of Human Resources, opening Rivers Casino in Des Plaines, so in essence, Chicago. Got my start many years ago at Earthlink. Kind of moved. I have a law degree, and so I moved into human resources and began there for my most important, I guess you would say, HR start.
Wow, that's
all over.
That's an impressive list of different things that you've done.
Thank you.
Let me ask you just one question about those positions. You said you opened Trump International in DC from ground up. So was it difficult in that market to find talent for the hotel?
You know, it was an amazing experience and very challenging and challenging for that reason. You know, and this was prior to anything happening with the presidential election, but you know, there were always we had to be sensitive to some of the things that were being said or whatever was going on, and so there was some limitation as to how much international recruiting we were able to do because and so in an already somewhat challenging labor market because DC is that
right.
We had some limitations. So through various organizations, we were able to identify refugees, made up quite a bit of our population, and then as well as obviously domestic staff, domestic individuals in the DC, Virginia, Maryland areas.
That's awesome. I knew that it was a tough labor market. I've opened a couple of hotels myself in operations as a GM, but not in a labor market that difficult. So what is it about human resources that you found interesting enough to start working in that field?
Well, it's to be able to deal with people and to see results. I have a legal background, so I have a law degree, and the thing about law is you never seem to end anything. But I feel like with human resources, you have goals, you have objectives, and you can work towards accomplishing them and see the fruits of your labor. As said, I've had 3 openings and large properties, and it's unbelievable to be able to see the results of what you've toiled to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's probably quite beneficial that you have a law background, I would imagine, being in human resources.
Yeah, it does help.
Yeah, because all of my HR folks tell me that that's kind of like their biggest fear is the legal issues that can jump up out of nowhere. So it's probably
Well,
pretty handy to have that in your back pocket.
the nice thing about having the law degree is you just not you understand the attorneys, so they become less of a barricade.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
you know.
You speak the same language.
Right.
So tell us, as it relates to human resources, tell us a story about one of your greatest accomplishments.
Well, I think probably getting through. I had an opportunity when I opened up Morongo Casino Resort and Spa in California, which is an Indian gaming place, and I was very quite green and handed the opportunity. The GM at the time, my person I reported to was no longer there, and it was quite sudden, and they gave me the opportunity to see what I could do. And so building a team and developing people with very little HR background and seeing them grow and flourish and become the resources that the operators needed to have a successful opening, that was unforgettable. I've had lots of interesting experiences since then, but that's something that will forever make a mark in my head.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Openings are a very special time in the lifespan of a hotel. I've been through a couple of those as well, and it's the relationships that are created pre-opening and that go on into years and years. In fact, I still have a very good relationship with a gentleman that I opened a hotel with in 1990. So that was certainly a lasting relationship. And you mentioned watching people grow. Tell us what you do to help your employees grow.
I think the best way, certainly for me, to have grown is learning and the experiences and getting through them. And what I try and do with my team is I don't want them to just come to me with problems. I think I want them to come to me with solutions. So identify what the issue is and come up with the best solution in your mind, and then let's talk through it. And that seems to help allow them to grow, and it allows them to be mentored a bit by me and to see what it takes to answer the issues and address the issues rather than just having somebody else, pop you the answer.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's a good way to get them prepared for the next step as well. Once they start, creating their own solutions. So that's awesome. Tell us about a time when you have helped an employee overcome a particular challenge.
So I had a great employee a while back, and this person was not a direct report. It was a person reporting to a direct report. And there were a lot of performance problems, and they just, to the point that they had to go on a performance improvement plan. And, as many of your listeners, and you hear the PIP or the performance improvement plan, you think that's it. Your person's done. And that was certainly the reputation of this particular company. But this is a person who I think they had potential and they were distracted. And without overstepping, my bounds in terms of them not being my direct report, between their direct boss and myself, we just worked to help them understand the steps they needed to take and how to improve and get better at what they were doing. And they ultimately were able to recover and took the steps necessary to overcome the PIP, and it was able to, she did fine, and this person is in a much higher position today and developed just wonderfully. So it's something I'm very pleased with.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's always good when you can take somebody from they're almost out the door to now they've been promoted. That's good
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So what type of training do you feel is most important for your employees?
I think, and just for clarity, is that for HR employees or all employees? What's your
All. Yeah, for
all?
anybody at the property.
I think in hospitality, it's about finding answers. It's about finding a way to say yes, and it's not that the guest is always right. I have to be careful when I say that. I think it's that the um, the guest needs an answer. The guest always needs an answer, and I think trainings need to be geared towards that. And so I think guest service is absolutely essential, and service recovery. The hotels and the hospitality companies that set themselves apart from their sisters and brothers are the ones that, frankly, a person who has a problem or a bad time or an issue, that person has that issue not just resolved, but resolved memorably. And then perhaps upon a return visit, if everything's done well and you get a return visit, there's some there's some mention of what happened before. So say there was a problem with an appetizer that was ordered, and provide upon the return visit, provide that same appetizer and making sure it's divine and perfect. I mean, something that's memorable is key. So service recovery, guest service, and that I think is key from a training perspective.
Awesome. Very good. So let me switch gears a little bit. Tell us what, if you have one, what is your typical day? What's it like?
There's not many. I think a lot of it in my role is work via email and phones and walking around the property a little bit, touching base with the leaders, the general managers of our organizations, and making sure that they're getting the support they need. And then developing and working through my direct reports, who are the HR leaders at our different properties. And that can, that in and of itself becomes, can be quite time consuming, and then throw in there all the meetings that everybody has, and I've got them too. And the day's gone, and you get to the week and the month, and there you go.
Yeah, completely understand that. So, no typical day other than the meetings.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I can understand
Bank on
that.
the meetings, that's for sure. But other than that, everything's different.
Okay, so let's say that there is an individual who is interested in getting into human resources for a career, and that they're listening to you right now. What would you want to tell them to help them be successful?
Well, a couple of things. I think, get hold of somebody like me, or get hold of somebody like you, or a seasoned HR person who can mentor and help guide. And I don't mean formally. I don't think that's necessary. But what I found in HR, the key to success is networking and talking to others, learning what others have experienced, and that will take you quite far.
Very, very sound advice. Networking has always been beneficial in everything that I've ever done, because let's face it, we can't know everything, and every little bit of information you can get from somebody else is always very helpful. Merrick, that's almost it for us today. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention or pass on to the people that are listening today?
No, I think, Randy, I appreciate you talking to me and including me, and it's a great profession to be part of.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Well, we thank you so much for your time, and we thank everybody for listening. So stay tuned. There'll be more coming. Thanks.